Hi there, thanks for tuning into the latest episode of Creative Glue. Today, Scott will be chatting with Glenn Sarangapany about their chance meeting at the Emergence Creative Festival, which resulted in the creation of a unique sound studio in the very heart of Northbridge called Panda Candy. Join us as we hear about the art of songwriting and the creative projects that have sparked through creative connections.
Your ideas and my ideas will stick together like glue. 'Cause we've got the creative glue.
All right, hello and welcome to another episode of Creative Glue. Today I'm joined by my friend and fellow co-founder of Panda Candy. That's right, musical composition legend, multi-platinum ARIA award-winning artist, Glenn. Welcome, mate.
Hello, how you doing?
Now, let's start with the big question, because I suppose everybody's wondering why I haven't used your full name in the introduction. So how on earth do we actually say it?
So I've actually changed it since I've come to Australia. So I say Sarangapany, which is going to be the way that my daughter says her name, but I think it's actually meant to be Sarangapany. But let's stick with Sarangapany.
Glenn Sarangapany. There we
That's
go.
the one.
That's as close as we're going to get for me today.
You nailed it.
Right. Well, now that we've got the biggest question of the day out of the way, mate, let's talk about collaboration. And I guess when it comes to these episodes, the glue that brought us together, which is a bit unusual. I've been talking to other people about their glue. Now we get to talk about a bit of my glue, and I guess the journey that we've been on for the last couple of years. So, as I suppose you and listeners will be aware, we've pulled together a swagger of alumni for these Emergence specials of Creative Glue. So I think we'll start there. So what was it that, and maybe how you became involved with the Emergence Creative Festival in the first place? Like, what was the catalyst for you to find out and become involved?
Well, we were in a production company in Sydney called Heckler, and the guys over there said, "You've got to meet this dude, Matt Lewis, who's going to be coming in. He's a crazy guy. Anytime he's in the room, just something will happen." And so that was enough of a sales pitch for me to be like, "Okay, I got to meet this guy." Had a couple of beers with him, and I reckon before I'd even finished my first can, he convinced us to fly over for Emergence, back to WA, just a hometown visit, and just come and hang out. To be honest, we didn't really know what Emergence was, other than it sounded cool. So, jumped on a plane, flew over to have a chat, just met people in the advertising world that we never would have met otherwise, including yourself. And it was just kind of an opportunity for us to really just hang out with no real intention, just other than being just chatting through ideas and being able to ask questions and talk about things and get really excited about what we wanted to do. And
Yeah,
it was just a great vibe.
I mean, Matt loves to rope people into Emergence, so I'm not surprised that he infected you with the bug pretty quickly and got you involved. And it's one of those things that's pretty hard to escape. And obviously, the festival's been on hold for a little bit, but we'll get into its comeback a little bit further. I suppose in thinking back to that first time that you came to Emergence, what were some of the people or the experiences that you encountered that really, I suppose, have shaped things for you moving forward? What were some of the people, that spring to mind as part of that experience?
So, I think the best example of it was Matt put us in a house with Angus Kingsmill, who owns Mambo, and it's just the kind of person I would never have been in contact with otherwise. And being able to chat to him about how he runs a business and how he the creative side of actually running a business, which I didn't realize exists. In my mind, creativity is when you write a song, but actually hearing how he puts things together in that way, it just really set off a million things in my head, and that's a lifelong connection which I'll never lose now. So he's a great one. There was just so many people, man, at the festivals. Like, just getting to chat through bunch of ideas, like anything we wanted to talk about was sick.
Yeah, and I mean, for those that don't know Angus, I mean, as you say, he's a former CEO of Mambo, and also the managing director of Radio Velvet, which he's got some stuff that's on the East Coast, and I mean, just again, an amazingly creative person, and I think as we've talked about before, the ability at Emergence to just be able to hang out with people and have these great conversations and connections that you'd never have any other way, really. I don't know how else you would ever, just happen to bump into these people in the street.
Oh man, and especially like you being in like that close proximity with them. Like, we were staying in the same houses, and we were kind of able to ask really dumbass questions. And I know he was asking us the same things from the band world, because he's a big fan of music. And so it was just a really, really nice conversation that we were able to have. Learnt heaps from him, which is great.
Yeah, and I think this is something that has become a bit of a theme with Emergence. We've talked about it a number of times. Is it's these cross-discipline pieces, and I mean, musicians don't want to talk to other musicians about music, and directors don't want to talk to other directors about direction. Everybody, advertising guys, doesn't want to talk about advertising. Everybody wants to talk about these cross disciplines and understand someone else's creative process. And I think that's what that house full of you guys offered, that ability to do it in a microcosm as much as at a whole festival. So it's good to see. I don't know. You also enjoyed a bit of time with Matty Eastwood as well.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. He gave a keynote on one of the days, and like, because we were so new to advertising, there was just so much that we didn't know, and being able to have a conversation with him about that stuff was amazing. And then after his keynote, he just sat there and took questions from everyone, and like 3 minutes in, we were all just like really milking the opportunity. Like, it's like you can ask every dumbass question that you always wanted to ask, and really dig into someone's brain like that. Man, like, when are we going to get the opportunity to do that kind of stuff? From like just starting out in the advertising world. He was a lovely, lovely dude to chat to.
Yeah, great guy and always super helpful. So it was good. And then you ran a session with Sparksy at Settlers. That was sort of the gig side of Emergence, and obviously the moment that we got to meet as well. And I've got a photo that of that David Dare Parker, who is also going to be joining us on another episode of Creative Glue. Shot at one of those emergences. I suppose for me, that's this catalyst moment when I start thinking about Panda Candy and how it all kicked off. So, I mean, this is a bit of a strange episode because normally I'm asking two different people, their sides of the story and those sorts of things. But this is about us in some ways.
Well,
So,
I can ask you, how
yeah.
did it feel to be there in that moment?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a great session, and I think I just observed the way that people were so into this intimate session of you guys talking about how your creative process of songwriting worked. And I think it just provided some really interesting inspiration for people to feel that their journey in that wasn't formulaic and had to be done a certain way. You guys really spoke to that audience about them finding their own way to tell their stories and to think about how their storytelling craft needed to come out. That's what it was more about. And I think a lot of people took away from that they didn't have to write songs a certain way to do that. They could actually really authentically be themselves. And I think that was really great to see. And I think the thing I got out of it was just how down to earth everybody was, which is so Emergence too. And yeah, it obviously kicked off, what was originally a friendship, and then led to being involved in this creation of this crazy thing we call Panda Candy. So,
Well, it was very cool to see that you were connected to that side of the like the craft of songwriting, but it's also the craft of being able to bare your soul and tell a story. And we could tell that you were immediately like you got that like straight away. And that's kind of been the big thing whenever I've done like a songwriting workshop. There's a number of tools that you can learn, like, music theory and like, production and bits and pieces like that, which are all really important. But at its core, you are trying to be able to convey an emotion and tell a story, and that's the most important thing. I think that translates very much into what we try and do Panda Candy with everything we're doing. When we're writing music, we're bringing music that has a flow and and lifts a story, that it's got ebbs and flows of emotion.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting thing to explore because obviously there's reasons you do that within uh, commercial music as an artist. So as a pop artist and writing songs that end up on the radio and that people are now streaming, millions of times a year or a day or a month. It's a very different type of scenario when we go in and get a brief from either an agency or a client to then go, hey, I want this piece of music to do something. But it's not as dissimilar as I think sometimes people might think. Um, so I mean, talk to me more about that side of the process and that shift, I suppose, as being a songwriter that was writing songs to hit the top 10 charts type stuff and being the hottest 100 to doing something that was trying to convince someone to buy beer, you know?
No, exactly. And like you said, we're in a very fortunate position where we can kind of pick and choose a certain style of music that people want us to write. And the jobs that we kind of gravitate towards aren't that dissimilar to writing music of your own. Like it's more collaborative because you're working with vision and you're working with a script and you're working with to gel everything together, and that's the collaborative process. But ultimately, the ones that we're really enjoying are the ones where you do have that ability to kind of go off the reservation a little bit and then come straight back. A really good example was the Heaps Normal jingle that Ian wrote, and it's just like it's a track, it's a jingle. You wanted it to be catchy, you wanted it to tell a story, and you wanted it to have a vibe of what the company's about. But it's very similar to writing pop music. The lyrics were written for us. We just added the music onto it, and it just kind of it's a different kind of collaboration. But like you said, not as dissimilar as what you might kind of imagine. It's like we're not just kind of listening to what someone's asking for from above, and then kind of just going, yeah, that's correct.
I mean, that Heaps Normal gig was kind of cool because we got to obviously work with, was it Arnie Jack, wasn't it?
Artie Donna.
Arnie Donna, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm going way back in time to another lifetime. Arnie Donna with that, I think those sorts of collaborations, have been some of the really cool parts. We've been able to bring in, artists and different styles. We've been able to work with like Fluent on different tracks as well. Um, some really interesting collaborations. Like are there any
That
that you've really enjoyed more than others? I mean, we kind of love everything we do. It's a bit hard to pick a favorite, isn't it?
No, that's the really cool stuff. We had a really good example of it was like I think we can call it our first official job in Perth with Containers for
From your
Change.
folks, from your friends, from your school, from your neighbors. We'll save them from landfill and take them, and then their dreams can continue again and again. Don't let your container's potential go to waste. We can beat it if we don't feed it.
Man Wyatt came in and was doing the VO for it, and the sound of his voice and his delivery changed the way we wrote the music. And the brief kind of went out the window once we heard him, because we started composing around him. So it's like awesome. As soon as he started delivering that, it was like, cool. Let's just stick with strip it back, go to the beat, the drum beat. We've got a jazz groove here. We'll let him command where the track goes. If that had been anyone else, like we had the initial direction we had was very, very different to that. We had we were imagining flutes and more orchestral kind of little bits and pieces. But as soon as you get someone in the room who can kind of command that kind of performance, you really go towards that. So that was a really good example of like where we were able to pivot very quickly, and the client and the agency and everyone was happy for us to pivot because they could see a better path than what was initially like kind of proposed.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were I mean, that project had a massive amount of collaboration. There were so many different artists that we brought into the fold, from orchestral to, even the mix and everything about that. I mean, it was really a pretty amazing project to kick things off for Panda Candy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was super cool. And that's kind of the stuff that we really do gravitate towards, where it's the tracks do get treated like how you record real music. Like
Mhm.
in a studio, you are limited with a certain degree of flexibility because you're getting in like these absolute weapon jazz musicians to come in and just like play over the top of things. So once they've done that pass, they have no idea what they've played. But like putting those little bits and pieces together, that's what makes that sound, that really authentic kind of like beat poetry track. And I think that that's something that is really special, and you get a very different kind of energy from that.
I love it. If we flip back a little bit, um, I recall us, having a coffee one day down here in Busselton. You've come and seen the studio, and this throwaway line as you're walking out the door with your wife is, like, "Man, this would make a cool studio," you know? And I'm like, "Yeah, man, like, if you ever wanna do that one day, we should talk." And it kind of was tongue in cheek, but from my perspective, I was like, "I'm pretty serious, man." And then I fast forward that to COVID hitting, and there was the UN put out a call to all creatives to sort of come up with some ideas of how to get people to sort of socially distance and all this sort of thing. And I think that was obviously our first opportunity to collaborate together and try and write something remotely from either side of the country. Like, what was that like from your side? I mean, I'm really, I know the story from my side, but for you, like, you know,
It was
how did,
super
how did it all
cool.
come together?
Well, from memory, you were after something that's like it was like a love song that shows that we care for each other by staying apart, and which is quite a heady concept to get around. But in music, it actually makes sense. Like you can kind of flow it. Like if you describe it to someone, it's a bit tough. But in a chorus, you can convey that for sure. So I had a oh, nope, I'm back. Sorry about that. Right in the middle of that. No, so, it's quite a heady kind of thing to describe to people, but in a chorus, you can really convey that emotion and get that idea across. So I
Yeah,
had a good idea of what you were kind of chasing, and then seeing the footage that you had put together during COVID time, that was sick. So I was just like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome fun. Like doing back and forth. This is gonna be wicked.
no, it was really cool. I remember we you wrote a line and it came through in one of the early drafts, which mentioned Ringo and Paul, and it was such an amazing line. We actually pulled it out because we thought it was too good for the project, and I know
uh,
you've got that banked somewhere, and so I'm waiting for it to come out in some form of creative execution from you. But if for listeners, if you ever hear a reference that's come from Glenn around Ringo and Paul, you'll know where that all came from. So
Man, so that specific line was about my daughter who's born on the same day as Paul McCartney, and she's a big Beatles fan, but
love it.
like has it was actually the other way around, but the rhyming pattern worked out better that way. But she's got no time for Ringo Starr and loves Paul McCartney, so,
I love that.
so like and like, yeah, it's like Let It Be is like one of her favorite songs ever. As soon as you put on Octopus's Garden, she's like, no,
No,
no.
I love it.
But the rhyming pattern worked better the other way.
I love that. I love it. I mean, I'm actually sitting with the lyrics to "In My Life" on the wall here in the studio on the other side. So,
Nice.
it's such a. I mean, they're a catalyst, um, musicians that I think bring us all together. And, I mean, the Beatles is just, an iconic one there for sure. So I guess then from there, like we've done this project, we've had some fun, you know, and the conversation moves to, like, you know, I want to come home. I don't want to be in the East. And my recollection is I threw out this thing of like, well, why don't we do this studio idea? And he said to me like, "Oh, yeah, but I'm not sure I want to be down south, man. I think we want to be in Perth." I'm like, "Well, we can do it in Perth." Really? Yeah. And then it kind of just happened from there. I mean, like, is that how it kind of worked from your side?
Yeah, so like we had our kid during COVID time, and we were in a like tiny 1 bedroom apartment in Sydney that we assumed we weren't going to be in for very long, and then the world decided to end. So,
Yeah.
so I think by that point we were very keen to to get back to WA. There were a few chats about Bustleton because from right after we had that initial coffee, I got back in the car with my wife and I was like, "Oh man, I have to do something like that. This is gonna be great." So that was always in the back of my mind, but I think just the needing to be with family and like the want to
Yeah.
be back in Perth, we were just like, "Now let's stick in Perth," and um, so yeah, it just kind of happened like fairly organically. Like where we were able to kind of be like, "Oh, cool, let's set something up over here." We've both got quite a bit of experience working in the industry. We think we can bring something different to than what everyone else is doing at this point. And the other thing is, it's like we're both also doing other stuff outside of it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like an extra little thing where we can pick and choose which jobs we're wanting to do, and kind of like we don't need to say yes to everything, which is a
Yeah.
super cool position to be in.
Oh, definitely. And for the listeners as well, we like, someone else heard about the party that we were having and wanted in in Ian as well. So, Ian's, the third panda, as we term it. And that's been great, in terms of when we talk collaboration. There's a I watch from my side of things in my involvement in the business, you guys being that real Lennon McCartney partnership in how you create music so harmoniously. And you're
I
just
hope there's a
such.
lot less heroin than Lennon
Yeah.
McCartney, but like right now we've definitely got less. I mean,
And
man,
but it's that.
Burns is a force of nature, dude. Like he's
Yeah.
like with what he's able to do creatively is unreal. Like, and he brings his own style very much into any brief that comes through. Like people are now
Mhm.
approaching him because they know he's going to deliver something that's got like that real guts and that grit to it, which
Yep.
is super cool to do. Like it's an area that like I just don't have like it doesn't come naturally to me. But when you hear a track that he's done, it's just like, oh, it's just flawlessly, just like effortlessly cool, which is wicked and awesome to hear. He was very much the creative side of musically that I've never kind of honed, and so it's awesome to be able to rely on him for that kind of stuff. And so
Yeah.
yeah, like it's been a very good creative partnership.
Yeah. And there's a friendship. There's a genuine friendship there as well, which I think is a really interesting piece that I've heard a lot as we're going through these things. Like, yeah, there's these creative collaborations and they love the creative energy, but then people will go out surfing together or like just want to hang out together and not talk shop and not talk work. They genuinely like being around each other. And I think that's, really part of that creative glue that pulls people together. So,
Oh, it
you know,
is definitely very nice to have a mate like who is like at the studio and you need to do stuff. Especially when things get tricky, like having a friend who's working with you
yeah.
is so valuable.
And for those playing at home, yes, the creative glue funk was very much Burns. Ian definitely brought the funk to the table for our creative glue track. So another Panda Candy creation. But yeah, you talking about what he brings to the table. If people want evidence of that, you can hear it in the intro and the outro. So it's
Nice.
fantastic.
I think you said the magic words for like bass heavy track for in the brief, and he was
He
straight
was
off on
onto it. I could give that a crack,
it.
he said. So,
Yeah.
so one of my favorite projects, and it's hard to pick because there's been some amazing stuff that we've done in Panda Candy, and this one's probably a little left of center, which is why it probably highlights for me is the composition work you did on Jumper. Can you just talk through that a little bit and how that collaboration began? Because, you know, for those that haven't had a chance to see Jumper, this is an animated, you know, story, and it's not a typical commercial style. We're not working for an agency. We didn't have a job to do for an ad. We weren't trying to sell something. I mean, this was an animation. So, you know, like how did that collaboration come about? And talk a bit to that whole process. You know,
So, we'd done a little bit of work with Siamese, the production company over here, who are great. Like they're phenomenal. I do so much long form work,
the
in
legends.
particular in animation, and they're like unbelievable that we get an opportunity to work with crew of that caliber. And they reached out saying, look, they've got a job. It's a passion project. A new director, but everyone is really excited about it. Like, would you be interested in having a look at it? And I think Francesca, the producer, like knew that I would love it immediately because the first time I watched the animatic, which is just like a rough sketch drawn thing, I was bawling my eyes out because of the story. It's like a 5-minute animated piece, and I just loved it. Like it just spoke to me so much. So I immediately said, "Yep, I'll do anything like to get this working to the best of my ability." Um, l- uh, and then we kind of went through the rest of the process. Like I'm chatting, meeting the director, who's a really good friend now, and she's super super talented. She's an animator and she's the director and writer of Jumper. And we did a spotting session where she just basically talks through the entire movie and goes, "Oh, this is the emotion I want here. This is a good reference for this part. This kind
Wow,
of thing happens here." And we happen to have a lot of musical references in common that we were both huge fans of. So I
I
was
love that.
so obsessed with that project. I think that was one where I ended up doing the thing where it's like, well, I don't think I need to sleep anymore. I'm just gonna stay up for 3 months and do nothing but composing for this Jumper.
Yeah,
And it was unreal, man. Like there's moments where I could actually, like get everything in time and sync with the animation. There's other moments where it just had to go into like cool rock parts. We got the our secret weapon was getting our string arranger and the string section to come and play at the end, and that was another moment of just like overwhelming kind of emotion for everyone in the room. It
I can
was, yeah,
imagine.
great project to be part of. I learned so much from it, and the thing went on to win like a heap of awards, which
Yeah.
is sick. You never do anything like that for the accolades or anything like that. But down the line, when they started popping up, it was like, what? This thing's just winning everything. So it's super cool, and I love it. I love working with animation.
And I think if the reason it's my one of my favorites is because I love what music can do. And I remember walking into the studio and seeing these sort of pencil sketches strapped together that were telling the story, and watching you compose music that created moments, that created energy, that created build up, that took you through a journey, that the sonic journey that is within that film is just as strong as the animation that's doing its job of visually telling you this thing and taking you there to this hiatus at the very end. But the incredible ability to actually use the music to create this inner feeling about what was happening on screen, and then to watch that go from simple, ditties on the piano and pencil drawings to this final composition. It's mind blowing to me, and I love that, because if you took the music away from that animation, it's a beautiful animation. It's a beautiful story, but I don't think it's anything without the music. It's just such a critical part of that whole process.
Well, the super cool thing was Izzy, the director and writer. She had, because she's such a good animator, she had such a clear vision of what the story was meant to be, and like she just knows instinctively how to use animation to tell that story and give those
Yeah,
feelings. So like just having someone who's like just so, it just comes naturally to her. Like she gets it without needing to be like translating it or anything. So having her kind of describe what she was after and then send through a bunch of references, it made it very easy for me to go from here to here of like what she was trying to do. It's like as soon as she told me what it was, that feeling was also in my head, so I could understand exactly what she was after, because it was exactly what I was after. So
yeah,
it made life easy when you've got a director who's so like in tune with the story, that she's just like, yeah, all the little like kind of little extra little bits and pieces just kind of like flow very naturally. And I think
yeah,
that's why people have kind of connected with that story so well. Honestly, I wasn't doing anything other than like bringing to life what she had described to me, but she'd done such a good job of describing it that it became what I wanted to feel as well. So
yeah.
that worked out really well. And
And it,
the company Flying Bark, who did the whole thing, they are incredible. Like the fact that I was able to work with them is like a dream come true. So again, like they put a lot of trust in her and then gave her a lot of guidance as well, that just helped bring the whole thing to life.
yeah, brilliant. I mean, and it's just another example of like the countless collaborations that you've been involved in, I suppose, across not just Panda Candy, but other businesses, your musical career, spanning across your creative life. Um, I'm curious, and I've been asking everybody this: is like, w- is there a secret to what brings and keeps creatives together? Like, what's that secret ingredient in creative glue? In the creative glue that keeps us together. What for you? What's that secret sauce?
I think it's actually the excitement of the whole thing. Like, I don't think that ever goes away.
Mhm.
Even on the worst days, like you're still excited. Like the worst day you can have playing music is because you're going to do a revision. You're going to play more guitar or piano. It's like it's still wicked, man. And I think that's never going to disappear. Like even if you're scratching your head and like and figuring out how to make something work, or like how to squeeze something in within a deadline, you're still making music, which is, I think that just never goes away. And I think that like when you're working with other people, that kind of, when everyone's going for that same goal, it
Yep.
holds everything together. I reckon.
I love that. That's cool. So now you're coming back for 2024 to the festival, which is good. A little easier now that you're in the West,
Yeah,
but
much quicker transit.
and obviously great to have Panda Candy along with the box, USO Digital, Bureau 42, Overs Creative, all as creative partners of Emergence Creative Festival this year, which is great. Is there anything particular about the festival? The program's still emerging, as is very typical for the festival. Was there anything particular that you're looking forward to by coming down and being part of it?
Honestly, I'm expecting the same experience as last time, where I have no real idea of what's happening, and that was the best part of it.
I
The
love it.
like having no expectations was part of it. Was like, I reckon, 50% of the fun last time. So that was great.
Well, before we wrap it up, I'm asking everybody for, as part of the alumni, their top tips for Emergence first timers. So have you got a tip or any tips that you would give someone coming to Emergence for the first time?
This is easy for me because like it comes really naturally to me, but just don't be afraid to ask dumb questions. Because I was asking the stupidest stuff that like anyone who's worked in advertising should know, and people were happy to help out. Honestly, like beyond that, it's like it's all kind of like it makes everything worthwhile.
I love it, and lots of people to ask dumb questions too. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Well, folks, that's it for this episode of Creative Glue, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to and hearing from Glenn, and in this case me, about the creation of Panda Candy and the creative glue that brought us together. It's also getting closer towards Emergence, and I'm super excited, and I can't wait to get down to Margs and be involved. If you haven't got your tickets yet, jump onto the website and grab yourself a pass. Make space for this. That's also the theme for this year's Emergence Festival. So you really don't want to have FOMO about this one, that's for sure. It's definitely something you don't want to miss. It's an important part of the creative landscape, and it's been missing for a number of years now. So it's great that it's back, but make sure you get along to that. Grab your mates, book some accommodation, and get yourself along. www.emergencecreative.com for details and tickets. Lucy, who are we catching up with on the next episode of Creative Glue?
Next week, Scott will be chatting to Kylie Robertson, co-founder and chief product officer at Matterworks, and Sophie Matthewson, who is creative producer and content specialist. Sophie, who during her Emergence experience was once upon a time based in Margaret River, but now living in Hoi An in Vietnam. She is known for her storytelling prowess, with a background in production design, digital content creation and tourism marketing, and she excels in crafting emotionally charged stories enriched by art direction and creative design. Kylie Robertson, co-founder and chief product officer at Matterworks, is an award-winning storyteller and creative director dedicated to leveraging new technologies for youth content. Her extensive experience in content and product innovation is driven by her desire to create health products that effectively connect, engage, and educate future generations. Thanks again for making space, and keep an eye on our socials for more details and the next episode of Creative Glue. Another Emergence special.